Is our lot in life exhausting, frustrating, and unfair? Yes, it is. But our goal is to win. Hallelujah. Anyways, anyhow.
Interviewees adopt angry Black women and strong Black women schema, and PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, features a survival strategy stemming from gender discrimination rooted in proximity to whiteness and habitual attacks on their professional acumen.
Right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our series of Let's Talk Therapy by Ibisami Relational Health. I am Dr. Christiana Wosan, the owner of Ibisami Relational Health. And once again, we have our esteemed clinicians. We're going to introduce themselves, and then we're going to talk about the topic for today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Hunter Lewis, and I am an associate therapist here at Abuse Relational Health.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanique Somers, and I'm the intern here at Ibisami Health.
All right. Well, thank you both, Jacqueline and Tanique, for joining us again for this Let's Talk Therapy series. We are doing part two because people really loved part one when we focused on the topic of the shift from strong women, emotionally supported women, and people had a lot of interactions with the audio, and they specifically wanted to hear more around the topic about being strong women and how it connects specifically to Black women. And so our discussion today, it's really going to focus on Black women, right? And Black women's mental health, emotional health, relational health, and physical health as well, and how this notion of the strong woman, the strong Black woman, impacts our mental, emotional, relational, and physical well-being and health. One specific interaction that we got that we thought was very, very important to highlight was one of the people who interacted with our video really took their time to watch the video, and they had some really great comments around just really helping us to understand this notion around where Black women are in the United States, and even we can stay globally, and this notion or the stereotype of this trope that we use in depicting Black women as strong. Like, it's not that we are created to be stronger. It seems as if circumstances, and this person mentioned slavery, they mentioned Jim Crow, they also mentioned social terrorism, particularly in the United States, when we're talking about Black women, specifically in this case, this person was talking about African American women and how, because of slavery and the impact of slavery, where Black women are made to basically be a receptacle for breeding babies and to be strong. They're not to them, they're not to the white people who colonize and enslave them. They were not babies. They were like literally people who they were using to work, right? And so Black women had to be strong, not just Black women, Black men as well had to be strong mentally, emotionally, physically, even relationally, while like their life is being literally destroyed and not being thought of as humans, and they're being ripped apart. So this notion of being strong, and this person was connecting it to that, right? The rape and the torture that they experienced and how they had to be strong. And so for that reason, this person is saying that as Black women, we are strong. And when we look at current times, even facing like discrimination, racism, the imposition of whiteness, whether it's on our beauty or the ways in which we show up in society and at work, it creates this need to be strong in order to survive. And this person was also saying that it is important to highlight that, particularly given that Black women are not only heading households, not only like being the ones that have the new businesses, number of new businesses that have been started in the United States, and also being enrolled in college, Black women are at the top. And yes, it's important to highlight that strength and those achievements. And it's also important to also look at the ways in which that strength have also cost us emotionally, mentally, relationally, and also physically as well. So while we're trying to be strong, because yes, it's been passed down generationally, not because we just want it that way, but because of the context, right? Because of slavery, because of colonization for other Black women from the diaspora, right? And because of current day racism and whiteness, Black women had to be strong, and it comes at a cost. So today we really want to talk about both and, right? The cost of this terrorism, I will call it, on us and what it costs us. And this notion of like being strong, even though it can be something positive, and some people look at it as positive, at the same time, it's also detrimental to us. Any thoughts, reflections on that?
Yeah, I think for me, the word that keeps resonating for me that in a way is resilience. We've had to be resilient, and resilience is the ability to mentally, emotionally, or physically adapt to adversity, recover from misfortune, and bounce back from difficult experiences. And I think sometimes when we are saying strong, it's like it doesn't encapsulate that there's adversity. It's just like there's just this being where we just happen to be strong. We're resilient, meaning we have had to face issues, and that is where the quote unquote strength comes from. And it is a strength, but when we use the word strong, it seems to neglect the circumstances that produces the reaction. So that's the biggest thing that kept coming up. Is strong is hard because it makes it seem like there's a determination or a intent to be more than what's needed. But what I'm seeing is that we have had to rise to the occasion due to the circumstances that we have been dealt with. And a lot of it comes from things like you've mentioned, these systematic um, uh, attack on us. But yeah, that was the thing that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I agree. As you were talking, Christiana, what came up for me was, or what was highlighted for me were the examples of surviving, right? And how the strength was correlated to a sense of surviving and the importance of being able to get through adversity, as you were talking about, Tanique, right? And I think that, of course, there is a sense of pride in that. There's a sense of pride in how our ancestors were able to survive and be put in those situations and still made the best of whatever was happening. And like you said, and the both and of this is knowing that, okay, yes, we are able to survive and still know our capacity, ask for help when it feels like too much, and pay attention to those things. And so, what I think is important for me is knowing that, yes, I can survive. And also, there are moments when there is, when things seems to settle down, when there is no adversity. How do I thrive in my life? How do I move past the survival mode that was passed down from and the commenter is right, right? That was a legacy passed down to us. This is how you survive in this system, in this new world that we were just thrown into. This is how you move and stay alive. I think that we also need to decide whether or not we just want to hold on to that part of the legacy, or do we want to add to it and also show our our um our children and the generations to come also that it's okay to not stay in survival mode, that you can ask for help. You can know your capacity. You can pay attention to your nervous system and your body's signals and decide that, okay, I need to care for myself. I need to step back. I need to get some help from those that love
Yeah, that's a really good point. This notion of really like seeing the pride in that legacy, right? And holding on to it, because if our ancestors didn't actually survive, we won't be here, right? It's
Right.
because of their strength, their survival strategies, right? Even though it took a toll on them, that we're here. And because they've done that work for us, we're able to be here, right? And to not only continue to survive, I like the way you put it, to also thrive. And at the same time, thriving is also difficult in a society that is bent on erasing you, right?
you. Yeah.
I mean, we're doing this today. Today is May 1st. It was like this week that the Supreme Court got it, right? The Civil Rights Act, right? So like
Yeah.
that's one of the things that our ancestors fought for. People died for that. And so even now we're still like struggling. So it's like, how do you survive and thrive in a society, in a world that is basically telling you, we don't want you to exist. We don't think you deserve any rights as human being, right? Which then I think goes to this notion of why we have to be strong, not because we want to be strong. It's like we have to be strong. And at the same time, it is costing us. I don't know if you all have heard about John Henryism. Um, John Henryism, like worldview or philosophy. Have you heard about that before? No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so John Henryism was like coined in 1970s by Sherman James. So he's this whole thing is like the way they talk about it is like a folk hero named John Henry, and he was a steam driver who basically died from exhaustion, trying to win a race between him and a machine, against the machine. So it's just like this notion, and we know this, like we've seen this in historical like data and archives of the ways in which Black men and women literally worked to death,
Yeah.
right? Like there are, in terms of like when they archive like um, people's bones, right? They're able to see that their flesh was like, and their bones were falling because they literally died on the field. They died in the way in which it's inhumane, right? And not only adults, we're talking about kids as well, right? And so this whole notion of John Henryism is like you have to put on this like strong persona, like this strong disposition, in order to really not only to like try to manage all the difficulties and the stressors of being a Black person, but also trying to cope, right? Trying to like survive within it, and also trying to survive within it, knowing that success is not guaranteed at all, right? So when people talk about Black women being strong and Black women having the highest enrollment in college and starting up businesses, I mean, just we know since this administration, Black women have literally the rate of unemployment for Black women have increased, and Black women have been fired at a higher rate. So it's like there's no guarantee, right, of success,
Mm-hmm.
but you still have to be strong. You still have to keep it going, right? You still have to move forward and survive. So this notion of like, when I think about the notion of the strong Black woman, I always think about this notion of John Henryism. And I'm like, this is not good for us, because literally we are dying, right? Mentally, emotionally, relationally, physically, with no guarantee of success. And we're really pushing ourselves beyond our limit. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
we're not machines, right? And so I think it's very important. We know this with clients that we work with, like as clinicians, and it's particularly as Black female clinicians, right? We're paying attention to this thing. So how do, like, what do we want Black women and also maybe other women of color, but specifically Black women, to understand about the pressure to always appear strong, this notion of the strong Black women narrative? And I'm so glad that we also kind of dismantle that black girl magic, because it's also the same thing, right?
Mm.
Narrative that silently contributes to the anxiety and depression that we often experience because we are feeling and experiencing a lot of oppositions, right? And we're not guaranteed success, we're not seen, and we're also mistreated. How do we like really help women to like really understand that pressure, right? And how it appears in this narrative of being the strong Black woman, or what we call now the Black girl magic, or whatever else we want to use as a persona to say we are strong.
I think one of the challenges that even I face as I have had to learn how to dismantle it too, is the fact that I have had to share a lot that we as humans, not even just as Black women, but as humans, are much more able to pour when we're full. And I think we have learned one of the things that while we were talking today, I'm starting to think it took a long time for me to even discern when I'm at capacity, because when you're in survival mode, it's like things are offline and you're not as aware of how your body is reacting. You're not as aware of how it's impacting you physically. It's more about getting a little bit mechanical. It was interesting that you brought up the word machine. We're working against a machine by trying to become a machine, because in the process you're trying to, I'm gonna use this word, I'm making it up, de-emotionalize yourself. Like you have to kind of put your emotions offline, putting your body's awareness offline to be able to move forward. And I've been trying to share with my clients that doing these things at the expense of yourself does not allow you to show up, even for the people that you love, in the way that you would like. But that showing up for you is also showing up for others, and that is a weird, almost counterintuitive concept. But I'm trying to bring this into the narrative that as you're taking care of yourself, it dismantling the idea that it's not selfish, that it's not something that is a weakness, or even realizing that you're exhausted. Hey, I sometimes say, okay, well, you did this today, this today, this today, this today, this today, and you're still thinking about doing this, and showing them that no, legitimately, you have right to be exhausted because you've tried to do 10 to 15 things today. And as any person would be exhausted. So a lot of the times in my sessions, it's about even validating the fact that I'm like, sometimes I find myself saying, yeah, that's a lot. And even just saying that it's a lot, it's like that's the moment the clients are like, oh yeah, it is a lot. And I think even that has helped to get closer to awareness, because we have learned how to do this. But in that process, we did not learn how to check in with ourselves. And so sometimes I don't want to go from the standpoint as if, oh, you should know this. We weren't taught it. We weren't taught that level of self-awareness. It's about self-sacrifice. And that's one of the words that I see, or the things that come up a lot in my sessions.
Self-sacrifice is a really good point. And understanding what is at the root of this need to continue to do, right? I think that it's important to take a step back and ask yourself, like, where's this coming from? Why do I feel like I need to continue to do and not just be? Is it connected to um, my sense of value, and what values are connected to me wanting to be seen in that light, in the light of the doer, the one that can get it done. And then making your choices based on there, right? Like I'm not saying don't ever be the doer, right? Like we all have advanced degrees. So we know that there was some sense of motivation in that for all of us that are sitting here. Just understand what your motivation is, right? What would happen if you said no? What would happen if you decided not to, um, you know, make the choice to do whatever it is that might be putting you past your capacity? I heard recently, I'm sorry, Dr.
That's okay. Go
Christiana.
ahead. Go ahead.
I heard recently someone said they were talking to high achieving Black women, and they were like, "You don't need another degree, you need a hug," right? And it's like you sit back and you're like, "Yeah, what is it about the minute that I have any free time, I feel the need to fill it with another accomplishment?"
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good
Right.
point. Go ahead.
Sorry, I did see some Instagram posts like that. Like it's like, oh, I got a whole new degree. Turns out I only needed a hug. Like I
Yeah.
don't know where that came from. Um, but I know there is this like angst that happens for some of us, even including myself sometimes, this angst of what am I going to do with my free time? I need to be productive. That word productive has gotten me in some stuff in degree programs because I'm just like, what am I going to do with all this time? And I've noticed that it's a even when it's like it's a coping mechanism. It's like when it's not there, there's a vacuum, and then you have to sit with, oh, I haven't accomplished this in my life yet, or I don't have this yet, and so it has become a safe drug. And safe is being used loosely here. That no, I'm not drinking, no, I'm not this, but I have something that's occupying my time, in a productive way, of course, in a way that can bring me more financial opportunities, which that's the other thing. This it seems like the goalpost is always moving. And I don't know who moves it, and I don't know who set it.
Well, and that's the it, right? That is basically the it. It is the context of the imposition of whiteness that we're living in, right?
Yeah.
This level of anxiety is not coming out of nowhere. It's because we've experienced it in our own lifetime, in our own personal life, generationally, even within our family, that even though people are like, yes, you can. I mean, I remember in the 90s, it was like, education is the great equalizer, right? Like you need to go get an education, you need to get a degree so that you can actually move up and make more money. Okay, you move up
Mhm.
and make more money, but really you can get a promotion because of the skin color. So can you even like then you're like, can I make more money? Even if you're
Mhm.
making more money, you're stressed out because there's a lot of like responsibility put on you around the ways in which you need to be the strong Black woman,
Yeah.
to be the one that basically like fall in line and really like play like be part of the team, be a team player. And if you step out of being a team player, that's another like stress. So basically the anxiety, right? The reason why people are getting degrees and the reason why Black women are like really trying to do all of this is because there is uncertainty about success in our society. And we experience that a lot because we are seeing that it's not because we're not smart. We are smart. It's not because we don't know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. When we look
Mm.
at it, it's relegated towards our race and our gender. So that might not be the only thing, but that is
Mhm.
a part of it if we're to look at this from the lens of race, right? And also the lens of gender. Those are the two things that makes our success uncertain. And so
Mm.
how do we deal with that? By acquiring more degree, right? How do we also deal with that? By going, oh, I don't want to be the lazy Black woman, so I got to be strong. I don't want to be like, I don't want people to think that I'm not doing what I need to do, right? And sometimes we have no choice. You have to do it because you won't survive, right? You
Mm.
have to like really take on this persona and you wouldn't survive. But like you are saying, it is costing us, right? And it's like, when do you step back and go, okay, this narrative, and also like just holding on to this narrative, putting this narrative on myself is not helping me emotionally and mentally. It's actually creating more anxiety for me, right? It's creating depression in my life. It's creating this like restlessness, right? The need to keep wanting to do and get and get. But we have to deal with that uncertainty, and we have to deal with the ways in which society sees us with regards to our skin color, with regards to our gender, and how that is affecting how we're showing up for ourselves, like you're always saying, right?
Mm,
There's a lot
wow.
Yeah.
there.
It's powerful. One of the things I was thinking of too is the this cognitive dissonance that we go through because if I'm supposed to be always strong and here's a moment where I feel weak, it's like am I really, and I feel weak, but instead of it being that the circumstances are weighing on me in such a way that I'm feeling weak, it's coming from a place that I'm not resilient enough or I'm not strong enough to overcome this situation. And I
Right,
think that is where the depression and the anxiety, oh, I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good this. I'm not, and it becomes, and mind you, you're over functioning. You're not even under functioning. You're
right,
over functioning. And you're saying to, the way how we're thinking of it is, I need to function more
right, right,
as a response.
right. Which is already you're already over functioning. Now you're like, no,
Yeah.
I need to do more.
Yes.
Right.
But I think that word uncertainty is one that will cause distress for anyone, right?
Mm-hmm,
That intersectionality between gender and race. I
mm-hmm,
think it was Malcolm X that talked about like we are the ones that are perceived as on the bottom of the totem pole. And so if you always feel like you're having to do these things to prove yourself to a system, um, which is a machine, it's like it never ends because this thing is overworking. Just going back to your Henryism
mm-hmm,
um, point, where this is weird why this feels like the goalpost is always moving because as you every time before, oh, if you have a bachelor's you're going to get a job, if you have a master's now we got to get PhD. I don't know if there's anything past PhD. You're going to have to get double PhD now just to it's like we're trying to equalize or trying to measure up, and even when we're in some spaces high achieving, high earning, it still never feels the same because there is a system and there is a machine that's saying no matter how much you do, this is where you're at. And I feel like there's a helplessness, not a learned one, but there's a helplessness that comes from that if we were to surrender to say, like, well, it feels like there's nothing more I can do.
mm-hmm.
But there is a glass ceiling that we're fighting against. And I think sometimes we don't get the opportunity to talk about how unfair it is.
Yeah. I think what you're speaking to is the importance of like which we do in our work as systems thinker, as MFTs, right, as marriage and family therapists, to really look at the context, to look at the social cultural context that people are living in, so that people are not taking it on. Because usually what happens is that Black women start blaming their individual selves, and other people start blaming, like, you're not strong enough, you're not trying hard enough, you're being lazy. And so you internalize this message that there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, rather than trying to understand a situation within the context of the ways in which racism and sexism might be impacting our emotional well-being, right? And some people would be like, oh, it's an excuse. Well, it's not an excuse, right? It is an explanation to, especially as clinician, for us to understand how people are being affected by what is outside of their control, which is racism and sexism, and how that is impacting them. And I think this also goes into like, I mean, people are talking a lot about burnout lately. And for Black women, right? This level of stress, like you were talking about, Tanik, earlier, over functioning and then double over functioning. That's a lot of stress that you're dealing with, right? You're trying to survive, you're trying to thrive, like you were saying, Jacqueline, and you're still being met with opposition, barriers, right? No matter how hard you try, there's still, you have to work 10 times harder, right? It's even though you try not to. So that creates burnout, right? For
Mhm.
any person, but particularly for Black women, like it creates a lot of burnout. And so, one of the things as clinicians, what is our sense of like, because we know research has shown this, burnout looks different for each person's, right?
Mhm.
And within whatever racial group, ethnic group, even gender group, even age, because with teenager it looks different too. Burnout, depression, anxiety. From our work, whatever we notice, the ways in which burnout, anxiety, depression might look different for Black women.
Hmm. One some of the two that comes to mind when I'm listening to the clients and you know, like why they're coming and things like that. One of the ones is loss of interest in things that they used to do before for themselves. Or
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, I used to get my hair done. I used to get my nails done. I don't have time for that anymore, and I don't do it anymore. Or I don't even know what I wore today, or I haven't gone to a good movie. Things like I'm looking for things that they used to do before the stressor and what they're doing now. And so that gives me a frame of reference of that. Also, if they're snapping more, or someone is saying, other people are saying, you're not as happy, or, you know, or losing, or they feel like I'm losing patience with so and so now, and things like that. So those are some of the ones that I look forward to. So the relational aspect, and also the personal hobbies or goals, or things that were simply done just because they like it.
I agree. Those are good examples.
Mm-hmm.
I would also add finding ways to numb yourself emotionally. Um, you know, when you're burnt out, you just don't want to feel, you don't want to think. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, you might be drinking more,
Mm-hmm.
um, smoking, you know, marijuana is legal now, so that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people's go-tos lately. Eating more, you know, I'm not hungry, but I just ate a whole bag of chips, right?
Yeah.
And so you're trying to numb that exhaustion that's coming
Mm-hmm.
up for you. Finding ways to escape, doom scrolling, right? TikTok
Mm-hmm.
and all
Yeah.
of those things, right? Because you just don't want to think anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just tired. I want to escape from my reality.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like you were mentioning, Tanique, frustration with those around you, right? That's how it might be showing up in your relationships, feeling like, you know, starting to feel contempt for your partner or other people in your life,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, feeling like that you're in this alone, nobody cares, right? And it's where it's simply, you know, maybe they don't know that you're at capacity. Maybe you don't know what your needs are. Or maybe they just don't know how to help.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are the ways that I'm seeing that it comes up. A lot of times it's like I'm really frustrated with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Like you all brought up really good, like what we'll call like temperature check, right? That's what you just kind of
Mhm.
listed.
Yep.
Jay and Tanique, like what, like temperature check. All of these things that Jacqueline and Tanique just listed, if you can sit with them and like see, okay, where am I at with my relationship? Am I contempt where the people closest to me? Am I getting frustrated? Am I doom scrolling, right? Like rather than going to sleep, am I up till 1 o'clock, right? Just on TikTok, on YouTube, whatever it is, right? Am I eating, right? To numb myself? What am I doing to numb myself? So really taking a check, right, temperature check of all of this item that we listed. And I think another one is, which we are talking about earlier, is also like over functioning, right? Even though we're burnt out, We're like, no, I am strong. I can do this. Are you taking more than your capacity can take? Right. So really asking yourself that, am I doing too much? Right? Am I
Mhm.
doing too much? Because that's another temperature check, right? Because you, even though your body is saying we need to go sit down somewhere and rest, but you're like, no, I'm gonna push myself. That's a temperature check, right? So I think that those are very important. We talked about I want to speak a little bit more around the relational aspect of it, because we talked about the mental aspect of it. You might be able to tell, or maybe other people in your life might be able to tell. I think the relational aspect of it might be difficult for people to tell, because especially if you're a person that has a personality of just really like, you're just kind of outgoing, right? People might not pick it up quickly, right? If you're getting into more argument, or you're just really trying to oppose, like you're opposing people, you feel the need to defend yourself more, right?
Mhm.
um and it can go the other way, where you're like just silent in yourself. You're just like, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. Rather than trying to like work things out, you're like, I'm closing the door, I am done, you stay in your lane, I stay in my lane, I don't want to deal with this. I think it's also important for us to frame like burnout and depression, anxiety, this notion of being the strong Black woman also shows up. The indicators of it shows up in that relationship as well. I don't know if you two, Jay, if you have anything to add to that, particularly in their relational temperature check around that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, right? Feeling easily annoyed
Mm-hmm.
by your partner or those you're in a relationship with, becoming defensive, um, internalizing
Mm-hmm.
people's behaviors or what they're saying to think that they're just like making digs at you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of being able to, consider other reasons for things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hmm. One of the ones that come up for me is keeping a ledger, keeping a scorecard.
Yeah.
I learned that recently, but keeping a scorecard of what the other people are not doing. It's like you almost become more aware of what others are like the other people who you deem are under functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, in some ways it's good because you're able to see like I'm doing a lot. And a lot of times it's like, yeah, I'm doing a lot, but they don't realize, no, you're doing a lot and they may be doing less. But how can we get to the place of delegating or equalizing? But what it seems to become is like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then the argument becomes, you're not doing anything and I'm
Yeah.
doing everything. And so if
Yeah.
that's how you feel, you may be on the verge, you know? But it
Yeah.
could be a catalyst for a great conversation of
Mm-hmm.
how we can reach a solution. So I don't want to demonize that acknowledgement either, the awareness either. Yeah, maybe there are some things on your plate that shouldn't be, and this could be a way that we could have a conversation. But I noticed that's kind of how the conversation goes. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. They're not doing anything, and it is that's where the pain point is. So yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes
I
sense.
think that's a great point. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
it broods resentment, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
relationship
Yeah.
Yeah. And we know resentment is the silent killer of a good
relationship.
connection and a good relationship, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Mm.
So we've talked about the mental, the emotional, and the relational aspect of it. What about the physical, right? What is the connection between the emotional weight, right? That Black women carry and our physical health, right? Why is it important for us to address our mental health and how it might impact our physical self-care and health?
Yeah.
Yeah, our emotional health can manifest physically, right? Somatically, um, in ways that people don't really even consider, right? It can show up as autoimmune diseases.
Mhm.
It can show up as, of course, like headaches and backaches and shoulder
Mhm,
pain and all of those physical things as well.
mhm,
But I think that the connection that is really important is the relationship between stress and some of these autoimmune diseases that people are having, um, and your body carrying that stress and increasing the presence of, you know, lupus or
mhm,
cancer or, um, things that people don't necessarily relate to their mental health.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. That I think that's definitely some of the moments that were like those key moments that we may miss. Because a lot of times people may come into therapy or start, going to their doctor with somatic presentation and not realizing how it may be attached to some emotional suppression, some anger, resentment. I think of maybe very obvious could be some chest pain and how anxiety tends to show up like that. Even thinking of, the stress that it may have on your heart, physically, not even that the emotional heart, the physiological heart,
mhm,
um, and how that could show up too. Migraines, the increase in migraines,
Yeah.
that could be something too. And I think this is where the body awareness is so important, knowing yourself when you're well, right? And so that you can easily see when there's something shifting. I'm noticing I'm having more headaches now, or I'm noticing that I don't even have an appetite anymore. Things like that. And that's one of our strengths. Like, and I think we could really lean into that some more because our body does talk. It tells, it's just for us to have the mechanisms or the awareness to understand the language it speaks.
yeah,
And I'm learning that every day.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's a really good point. There have been research that kind of talks about how, for Black people, we tend to have more somatic ailment. However, our somatic ailment is also connected to our mental um, illnesses or mental stressors and
yeah.
emotional stressors that we're feeling. So, like with the point that you are saying, absolutely correct. Like that back pain is telling you something, that headache is telling you something. So, try, like, we're not saying either or, you have to do both, right? Like being able to like really talk to someone about what emotionally, mentally, relationally is stressing you out, right? Or is forcing you to want to quote unquote be that strong Black woman or that Black girl magic and take on that persona. Talking about it will be helpful because that's also part of your physical self care. And also going to the doctors, getting the physical that you need, and being able to even like advocate, because with what you're saying, Tanique, like really paying attention to our body, that's when we're able to track, right? Like on this day, I felt this. Well, what was going on that day? What was stressing me out that day? What was happening around that time that I felt this much? So we're able to track it. So not only are we talking to ourselves about it, we're also talking to the professionals that are working with us about it, our therapist, physician, right? Primary physician. And so it's an information that we're getting to know our bodies as well. So it's like really it's physical self-care for sure. Being able to talk about the stresses that we're feeling and paying attention to it. And also naming it, right? Like talking about it.
I'm
I
sorry,
think
Christina, as you mentioned that, I started to think of even the type of advocacy that has to happen sometimes in those rooms when
yeah,
we go to see if especially if it's not a culturally affirmed physician where we have had to over exaggerate sometimes just to even get the lab done. And so
mhm,
I'm even thinking about some of those barriers, even when you do know your body and you are saying, check this, check that, check this. And they're like, insurance or it doesn't rise to the level in your, and I think about how even in those rooms we deal with the systematic racism.
right.
Um, Geez,
Yeah.
Right.
I just
Right.
have to
Because
share that.
that's another level of stress, even just
Yeah.
the fight to be heard, to
Yeah.
say, hey, this is, I know my body, this is what is going on with my body, right? And being listened to and being heard, which is another level of stress, right? And you're so right about that. I mean, I remember years ago I had to do the same thing, and it was so stressful, very, very stressful. And I think like now, like with what you were saying, like us knowing our body is very important, even tracking it, so that
Yeah.
you can actually like, because sometimes when people second guess you, right, you start going, well, maybe it's not that bad, maybe I'm just being overreactive, right, like maybe I'm being too much, like I should just calm it
Hmm.
down. But if it's something that you're able to track and see, right, and you're able to connect it, then you like, you're able to go, yeah, no, not only do I feel it, I see it, right? And so you have that peace of mind around that
Mm,
too.
really good.
Yeah, it's a really good point that we're bringing up here. Yeah, health advocacy is very big, especially for us as Black women. So I think even with that, this goes where so for many Black women, and we struggle sometimes with just really being vulnerable, and vulnerable with like what's going on with us mentally, emotionally, relationally, physically, as we're talking about, right? And it's even become more challenging when you're being questioned and you're not being believed, right? So as and also talking to people who are closer to us, right? Sometimes it is challenging to open up about the stressors and the insecurity and the doubt and the uncertainty that we feel. As clinicians, what do you believe are the deeper roots of the struggle that we have? And not only how does it impact our relationship, but how do we change it? How do we shift it?
I think the first thing that came to mind was just like not wanting to let down our family members, our friends, and is this feeling like if I tell them that I'm struggling, I'm letting them down. Or I wonder if we're carrying even the weight of letting down our whole, maybe our family, our gender, our race. It feels heavier than just the interpersonal one to one. Um, and feeling like, oh, I should have been able to do this, and I'm finding that I cannot. Um, but I think this is where the power of community really can come in. This is one of our strengths. This is one of the things that has kept us resilient through all these generations. And being okay with and us learning how to hold space for each other. Like, oh, absolutely. I hear you. I can see how difficult this is for you. And then I'm imploring us to offer help if you can. If that's what the person is asking. Sometimes they just want to be heard. So, you may have to ask the question, like, is this, you want me to, is this a point where you want me to offer services or you just wanting me to hear you out? I think sometimes we may need to get that from the beginning of the conversation. But this is the power of community, being able to hold space for each other and normalize these experiences, especially if you've actually dealt with it. Don't be on the other end like, girl, just get it together and don't do that. Normalize it if you have that had that experience and be the strength for each other. I think sometimes we have defined strength or resilience as something that you have to do alone, and that shows your capacity and capability and competence. But really, our strength as a community has been in the community. And so using that to our advantage and borrowing, I even talked about borrowing each other's faith. We can borrow each other's strength, and using that and really leaning into this, which is our true strength, which is coming together as a community.
Mm. I like that too, coming together as a community. I think that
Mhm.
that's important, because, you know, relationships are important in our identification of self, and our identity in the world, and where we are in the world and who we are in the world, um, in us being able to identify our place, um, our value, right? We set our value based on, um, whether or not we feel like that we are likable or um, included or accepted, right? And feeling accepted and loved, that impacts our sense of self. As you guys were talking, I think the word that came up for me was identity.
Mm,
Mm,
I think identity is at the base of all of this.
mhm.
And I think that is important for us as Black women to be able to take the power back in um, deciding who we are, what we believe, what we value, and then being able to discard, things that we don't feel hold value for us. I
mm,
think that a lot of times society is um, at the forefront of, what we should value or how we should behave, and those are not necessarily things that we hold true and and
mm,
um, and it sit at the base of what we want. And so that leads to a sense of depression, that leads to a sense of hopelessness, because at the root of what's happening is you're not being congruent. You're not in alignment. Your mind, your body, and your soul are not in alignment with the choices that you're making.
mm,
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful. That's a really good point. And just really, I mean, I think it's that relationship with self that is important. And
Mhm.
if we're able to really hold that and then hold also the relationship to others and allowing our value to be congruent with how we're doing relationship with ourselves, how we're doing relationship with others, then this need to either try to conform to strong Black women or run away from it, right? We wouldn't have to like keep struggling with that. The sad thing is racism is still going to be there, sexism is still going to
Mhm.
be there, and at the same time we get to really fully, even though it is hard, to choose how we want to
That's right.
be in the system, right? And it's very difficult, it's difficult, but we also have something that we can choose for ourselves, right? We can choose the ways in which we want to pay attention to our body. We can choose the ways in which we want to like create space for ourselves, not to internalize this narrative of the strong Black woman, right? We can choose the people we can go to really help us address this issue, a space to be able to talk about them and not be questioned or doubt that, wait, do I really feel that, or maybe I'm overreacting, right? We get to choose that space for ourselves. I really appreciate that. I think that this
mm,
brings us to like our last question, right? For Black women, particularly the ones who might be watching this video, right? And they are considering therapy or have been hesitant about seeking therapy, and they're noticing the ways in which they are stressed, burnt out, really maybe unconsciously internalizing this strong Black woman persona and narrative, and they're really seeing how it's impacting them emotionally, mentally, right, relationally, and physically, as we've talked about. What would you want to say to that woman, right, to let her know that um, what her healing will look like, right? To also let her know that she deserves a space for herself, within herself, outside of herself, to be a fully whole self, right? To be the person she was created to be able to truly like own what it is that Ibisami is about, which is like being born fits you, right? Truly be
mm,
your whole self. What would we say to her?
I would say that you're right. You do deserve to have a space to process, your experiences, to share your experiences, have them validated for you, and also to be gently challenged in your perspectives about things, right? Because therapy is where we see you, we hear you, but we also challenge you so that you can um, decide and make better choices for yourself, for your relationships. We the idea of, I know the idea of, telling somebody your experiences or your business or your traumas, all the things that you've been through might feel scary.
Mhm.
Telling somebody that is initially a stranger, all of these things about you might feel scary in the idea that I'm being judged. But I can speak for myself, and I'm pretty much sure about, everybody that works at our practice. We allow our clients to take it at their pace, right? We don't jump in and, um, want to just, want you to just disclose everything in the first session, right? Like we take it pretty slow. We get to know you and what your goals are, what you want to happen, and we help you process and also explore, right? Explore your values, explore what you really want. We help you, we give you the coping skills that might be better suited for you in this stage that you're in life, right? If you're having the maladaptive coping skills that we talked about earlier that might be showing up. Um, and so things are done more at your pace, and we just highlight for you what is actually inside of you, right? We help you to make the decisions and the choices and come up with those things yourself, by, asking questions or having you explore things a little deeper.
Mm. One of the things I was thinking too is like we talked about systemic nature of racism, but representation matters, and being able to come to a practice where you see your people is is like one less stressor to deal with. It doesn't mean that you don't have your own experiences and um that we will match on every single thing, but that's one less thing that you have to do in therapy with us, where you have to um advocate from a place of first see me. We have experienced a lot of the same barriers, and we're learning each and every day. But I think having someone, I have benefited a lot in my own health journey by all of my physicians, especially the ones who are Black women who have. My hair wouldn't even be the hair that I have if I didn't have a really good Black practitioner. And I was just like, I was willing to take her influence because I knew she cared about me. And obviously, it wasn't just because she was Black, but there was a different level of care that I experienced. And that is even why I came to this work, that I wanted to provide that space for someone. I wanted to be able to provide that type of support for someone. And I've seen a lot more efficacy once you're in a culturally affirming environment. And I want to make sure that you guys know that that's one of the highlights of our practice. Not the only, just one of.
I appreciate that. As I listen to you too, and I think about just the name of our practice, Ibisami, which in Yoruba means being born fits you, right? And that's what we provide here, like because part of like our work, which is like you said, it's not the only thing, but part of our work is really to create a space for Black and brown people, right? And people of color, and also specifically in this case, Black women, to be able to see themselves, to be able to come to a space where they're not questioning, like, well, is what you're saying really true or not true, or even being blamed for the issue that they're facing. Like part of what we do is what you are saying, culturally affirming, where we do see you and we do challenge some of the cultural like narratives, ways of being that we've held on to because it's a survival strategy. And we start going, how can we look at this differently? How can we do this differently? Right. And we look at everything very holistically, looking at your mental, emotional, relational, and how it impacts you physically. And we look at the larger social structure, how all of that too is impacting the issue that you're bringing into therapy, and also the resources that you have within yourself and outside of yourself to be able to change and to shift and to disrupt some of the patterns and ways of being that are not working for you. So thank you both for like doing the second part of this series, and we really appreciate all of the people who watch our video and commented. Thank you for commenting, and we hope that this second part is meaningful to you all. And as always, we are grateful that you are listening to us. And if you're interested in our services, you can go on our website, Redefining Relational Health. And we do have a free 15-minute phone consultation that you can do with one of our clinicians and practice manager, and will be willing to listen to you. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for listening to us. And Jay and Tanik, thank you once again for your wisdom and your knowledge and just really your presence.